All right, I just sent that and it is 11:03. This is the Southborough Library Board of Trustees. It is Friday, November 18th, our monthly meeting. The first order of business is to review and approve the minutes of October 14, 2022. Do I have any emendations or corrections?
I have one tiny one, but I need to find
All
it.
right, Janet.
Just under the thing that says approval of minutes at the top,
Mm-hmm.
it says trustee Yazdani made a motion to approve minutes as proposed. I think we should say amended minutes.
Yeah,
That's
So
not-
proposed as amended.
Or
Oh,
to
wait a
approve
minute.
amended minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, trustee Yazdani made a motion to approve amended minutes.
Yeah,
Okay, we're good on that. Anything else?
nope, not for me.
Anybody else? Do we want to mention the amount in the book sale that the Friends made?
we typically don't because
Okay.
honestly, the public communication to the friends is usually a rounded number anyway.
Yep,
So it's not exact. And then I don't want it to be confused with any sort of budget numbers. The friends are kind of a
Alright.
separate entity. I think, we spent the last couple years talking about enhancing communications. So I attend the friends meetings regularly. I like to let you guys know what they're up
Okay.
to, and I'm saying up to, but like what they're currently working on, I guess would be a better descriptor. And then, like today, I think when we get to the director's report, there's going to be a holiday book sale on December 3rd. And I think
Alright.
if people want to volunteer, that's
Okay,
but
that's
I'm going
good.
on. Yeah, sorry.
All right, and I just got a text from Jane that she is traveling today. So we are down one trustee, but that's perfectly understandable.
Mhm.
All right, so do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended, which is to include the word amended in the
I'm
minutes?
to approve.
Is this
I
getting a
motion
little
Marguerite.
catch-22-y or what? I don't know.
I'm not gonna try and repeat that, so moved.
Motion, yeah, exactly.
Okay, Janet moves, Amy seconds.
Yes, Shriver.
All right, trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Yazdani,
Aye.
trustee Reagan,
Aye.
trustee Maney,
Aye.
and there's one person who's disappeared. Trustee Ekberg abstains.
Okay. 4, that's good.
Do you
Okay.
have enough votes? Yeah, you can get 4.
Abstain for the, okay, I will say the motion has passed with 4 trustees and 1 abstention. How's that?
Good.
All right, director's report.
Well, I would say not present for vote. 'cause
Okay,
abstain is
David,
unclear.
we just voted to accept.
I'm
the
sorry,
minutes as
I
amended.
departed. Did you need me to vote?
Yes.
I will vote yes.
Okay, then
Aye.
it is unanimous. Thank you, Mariana, as usual, for beautiful minutes, really. They're super good and clear. All right, director's report, Ryan.
All right, it was very kind of updates on just some of the facilities DPW IT issues you saw. I think a lot of those were self-explanatory. I can tell you that the picnic bench that we ordered in the summer was delivered to the library today.
Yay.
Isn't that exciting? So clearly there was there's still some delivery and supply chain issues going on, because I think that was what, 4 or 5 months after, 5 months after it was ordered. So that took a while. So
No
I just
surprise.
got the bill for it. So I know, we're going to be going into the financials. There was a state aid payment that was made to the town that was deposited. Just so that you're aware, that money that we approved to pay out of state aid for the display case that we've actually had for the last 5 months and for the picnic table, those were combined. They were on the same invoice. So that needs to be paid now because of the delivery got accepted. So we got a lot of money, and then some of that money is going to be like pretty much immediately spent. Like that kind of worked out. So
One question, how much did it cost? I can't remember. And 2, does it get stored during the winter or does it sit out there? And does it need to be put on a concrete pad or anything?
it needs to be assembled is my understanding. I'm gonna be at the library tomorrow, so I can give you more information then.
All right.
I know Mariana accepted the delivery today. We were gonna see if facilities could just take a look at it. I believe it's in the building. I don't know if it's out of the building. I know that it came on a pallet, so that's always kind of a
Good.
balancing act because we don't have a loading dock. They're always disappointed that we don't have a loading dock. I'm like,
We
yeah, we're a small
really
public
don't
library.
have a loading dock. There is so no loading dock. There's barely a person entrance. Listen, is it more efficient to split the invoices in the future, or
The Demco didn't want to do it because the items were ordered together. I
Okay.
actually asked them that
All right.
question. It was just under $3,000 for both items.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like 2,991 and some change. So it was something like that. It might have been 2,997. I can get you the exact figure if you're
no
curious.
need, no
It's-
need. I was
Yeah,
just
it's good. I can add it to the expense report for December because the bill has not been paid yet. It will be paid by the time we meet again.
all right.
Um,
I think it's a lovely purchase, no matter what time of year it arrives. So
What about, Marguerite's second question? Is this kind of thing that can be left out during the winter without damage?
Yeah, it's weather. It was designed for exterior use. So it's a
Okay,
picnic
good.
bench, so it should hold up, and it's kind of metal, so it won't, it's not like the teak sort of seating we have in the intersection. That does wear over time. It needs to be kind of like treated. The picnic bench shouldn't, I mean, it might need attention. I shouldn't say that we'll never have to pay attention to it, but it was designed to be weather resistant. That was part of the reason we paid a little bit more for it.
So if we hit another 70-degree day in February, the staff can enjoy lunch outside. Yeah.
Perfect
A
timing.
muddy
Like I
front
said, it
lawn
just-
with snow all around them. Right.
yes, snow luncheon.
It came just in time for the snow when no one's eating outside anymore.
Well,
so
I think it's a
great timing.
wonderful purchase. And I don't care what time it came, it's gonna be great to have it. And thank
Yeah,
you to the facilities for assembling it.
Well, they haven't assembled it yet, but we'll
Well,
probably thank
yes, I
them
know, I'm
next
being
meeting.
optimistic. It's gonna be, they have quite a few of those benches scattered around town, so
Okay.
that should be good. Any other questions about the picnic equipment?
Mm-mm.
No? All right, good. Ryan, how about the expense report?
Well, just to continue on the director's report really quick, Marguerite,
Okay,
the only thing I want to mention is, again, I think all of that information is self-explanatory. It's just sort of general updates. But the one thing is that the Santa Day for the town, we have confirmed that is going to be on Saturday, December 3rd.
Saturday of the month.
Yeah, the first
Yeah.
Saturday in December is typically when it is, so that I know sometimes they're like, if it's gonna rain, they sometimes don't do the helicopter. So the weather so far looks like it's gonna be okay. The Friends have decided to run a sale. I think we did this many years ago. It's gonna be from 10 to 2.
mhm.
The sale is going to be inside the library. We're going to reconfigure the upper floor, which is where the kids are going to work on ornaments for the tree. They typically create ornaments to decorate the tree. The tree will be physically upstairs. Eaton and the children's room will be kind of decorating stations, like places for them to work on. And then the sale is actually going to be on all the tables upstairs. So I guess the first thing to let you know is that public seating will be unavailable pretty much for the entire day. And for probably part of Friday afternoon on the 2nd, we're going to have the Friends come in the afternoon and start kind of loading the books on the tables. And then we will need like just people who will cashier for that period of time. I think we're looking at maybe people to do it for an hour, so it's not going to be a big time commitment. Traffic will be crazy because it's Santa Day, if you've ever been to that before. So just let me know if you're interested. I know that some of the Friends members can't go because they're going to be away. So they were actively looking for volunteers. So I'm just throwing that out there if you want me to put you in touch with Diane Tremblay.
Oh, that sounds
they-
great.
Do
This
they
is really a
want any
second-
more book donations?
Yeah.
We do not. So the part of the reason for the sale, that's a great question, Janet, and the answer is no. The we did financially, I think the Friends were happy with the outcome of the sale at Heritage Day. The problem is that we got inundated with donations. We got so many donations that part of the reason we're doing a holiday sale and starting to advertise it now is I think actually the books are going to be kind of at a discount because we want to kind of reduce inventory so that they can start prepping for the eventual June sale next year. If you have, we're not like, if people come with books to donate, we're not going to turn them away, but I would say we're not going to be actively soliciting donations right now. If anybody does out there who's watching, or any of the trustees has children's books, we're
that's
always in
right.
need of those. So those are we're more than happy to take them. But really, we're not looking at those VHS tapes, those old dictionaries. We're going to say no to those. Those are not things that we want because we're going to have to end up bringing to the transfer station at some point.
So it's almost like there are gonna be 3 annual book sales now.
Well, this is
Fall,
just,
spring,
this
and
is,
now.
yeah, we don't know if this will become a new Santa
Yeah.
Day tradition, Marguerite. I
Right, but
think it's going to be dependent on the post Heritage Day inventory of the
Mhm.
book sale. But I can tell you we had a lot of books, and we did. I will say, Anna, who's one of our new library associates, her and I worked on Tuesday night at kind of bulking up the paperback section because moving it to the top of the stairs has been a really effective way to advertise it. People have been taking those books a lot more, which is great. But it also, like, there's entire sections of it that are empty. So we've decided to kind of use some of the donations to enhance that. And we have some nice mass market paperback donations. So that's another area. I would say children's books, mass market paperbacks, where I was looking for those.
Okay.
So
Good. Any questions? David?
Yeah,
you-
one quick question, Ryan, Mariana's visits to Algonquin, what kind of a yield has she gotten on library cards?
oh, well, so some of the classes have been double classes. There was an internet issue. I would say I assisted her the first week she was there in the afternoon, and then Leah went with her in the afternoon this week. And then I think she's got 3 more weeks to go. So she's had so many kids and she's issuing so many cards that we've had to send a second person. So
Oh, wow.
if that gives you kind of an idea.
So it's been a success.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're
Good.
looking at, we're talking with Kim Honey, who's the Algonquin librarian over there, who's been very helpful at sort of coordinating these visits and getting us into the school and allowing a second staff person. We didn't know that that was going to be necessary, I think, at the beginning. But we found it, like, a lot of kids got their library cards when they were really young and they don't have them anymore, or they lost them. But frequently we're finding that a lot of the kids are getting their first card as part
Good.
of these visits. So some people have followed up. Mariana has been very busy in the teen room this week, she'll tell you, especially with one of the early releases. So it's nice. This is a direct correlation in us going out into the community and then actually having sort of a return, I would say, on that time investment. We're also looking at, we're in the preliminary stages of working with Youth and Family Services. They have a youth council group. So we've talked about either going to Trottier, they're based in Trottier, and doing a visit there. I think that's going to be the initial step. And then also having them do a site visit at the library after school at some point.
Excellent.
So really, for many of you who have been on the board for a while, you know that I've been trying to find avenues and ways to do school partnerships. And that's always been a challenge because I know people on the school side are very busy. I will say having Mariana as our youth services librarian has really helped, because I think when I don't have time to follow up with the librarians and teachers in the school, Mariana has made that time. So
Excellent.
I'm very appreciative to her for following up and doing that.
Yeah, terrific.
Doing with the private schools in town? Do they use the library or do they have their own that they only use?
I think they have their own.
Do they just use their own libraries?
So we do allow Fay students and faculty and St. Mark's faculty and students and teachers to use the library. They can register to get a library card because they have a Southborough residential address. They do have their own school libraries too. We have not talked about doing outreach visits. I think the geographic distance, because we literally are sandwiched between the two schools, the kids can walk over and just get a card. So we have just talked about doing like address. The main thing we have to do with students is do address verification, and they don't have a license, right? So we are trying to talk. I know there's a lot of new staff in the library at St. Mark's, so I have started to have conversations with them about the best way to get those kids a card. I don't know that us going to the school in the same way that we're doing at Algonquin is the right method. That might be something we look at doing in the future if we can coordinate.
Yeah, I
it.
just wondered if the librarians at the schools are, make them aware that they can use the town library, because I just want, I'm not sure as a student, you'd think, well, my parents don't live in the town, so maybe I can't use the library. So I was just wondering if that was something that is actively told to the students.
Well, for commuters, you wouldn't give a commuter a card who's from a different town, would you? It would be just the kids who live there?
So anybody from Massachusetts qualifies for a library card. That's how it
Any
works
town? Oh,
in
okay.
any town. So if they're out of state, that technically they don't qualify, right? We have made like exceptions to do, like, if they're going to be here taking care of a sick relative that's come up, once or twice, and they need to use the internet because like the house doesn't have internet. So we've I have a way to issue like an internet only card. We've only had to do that maybe like a very small handful of times. But we do have people, Janet, who work in the community, who live in a different town. And so we end up being their primary library, right? Because they'll come to us either before or after, or even on a lunch break. So the majority of cards, I can tell you, I think it's like somewhere less than 150 of the cards are what you would call non-resident cards. So they're people who do not live in there. And we have like about 6,700 cards. So that gives you an idea of, there's a small subset of people who, live in Massachusetts, who don't live in Southborough, who use our library, but it's the same. There's Southborough people who work in other communities or who work in Boston, and they use the Boston library. So that's kind of the interconnectivity.
It's also that a lot of library operations are paid for with state money, which comes from all the residents of the state. So I think the outreach is fabulous, and the more we can do, the better. And the schools are, you've been saying you wanted to do that for a while. I think it's really successful.
It's a good thing to bring up though, because about, I would say, half the students that we're giving cards to, right, because we have a combined regional high school, are also Northborough residents. So we did speak with the Northborough Library and we coordinated this ahead of time. So, we are actively giving them information about our library and encouraging them to come back to our library. But if they're Northborough users and they prefer to go to Northborough, or it's more convenient for the students to do that, their card that we issue will work there too. So
I think that's wonderful. Do we have any other comments about this input? No, except thank you, Brian, and thank you, Mariana, for working in the trenches like that. Other things in the director's report before we move on to expense and the budget discussion, which I'm on tenterhooks about now, as of your email yesterday. Anything in the director's or expense report that you want to go over?
no, I'm glad David brought up the outreach visits. I thought that was worth a special note. That's definitely something new that we're doing, which I'm really proud of.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think just as one other comment is that I think my observations are that there are, not so much from Fay, but from St. Mark's, there are kids that simply come in to do their homework.
Yeah.
They come in and don't bother anybody. They don't have a library card maybe, but they're just in there for an alternative place to have peace and quiet and do their work.
We've all had roommates, so yes, I can see why they do that.
It's also the Fay students too. They use the children's room. Some
Oh,
of
they
the
do.
time.
Okay, good.
So it's not, and I would say a lot of the spouses of some of the faculty and staff at the schools, they're regular library users, I would say. But it's good. I think it's good people are using the library.
Yep,
Makes me
I
happy.
agree. I think the outreach is fantastic. No silos with the library. Thank you very much. It's really good. The expense report. Do we have any questions? Do you want to point anything out?
I did follow up on an item from the last meeting. So it's a little bit director's report, expense report related, but our renewal came up for the service contract with Biblioteca. So I'm going to be sending that in. I did talk with our local sort of technician representative. I don't exactly know what Biblioteca calls him, but he's like our regional technician, I guess. And I did ask about upgrading the software, right? Like going to the new software platform. He said that we can stay on the existing one, that they will still support that, but that with the service contract, there is no additional cost to move up to the new software platform. So that was good news. He said that's part of what you pay for when you pay for the contract. So he did give me, I believe Shrewsbury and Worcester are two of the local examples he gave me of self-checks that use the new software. So one of the things that we discussed was maybe it would be good for us, I'm saying us, for me and maybe one or two of the other staff, or you're welcome to kind of take a look too, but to go to those libraries and just use the self-check equipment and see if the platform is radically different. He did say there are some differences that we would want to probably look at before we make a final decision. So
that platform in there is, how long has self-check been there? 5 years?
Since 2015, so a little bit longer.
7 years, right. So that software is 7 years old?
Yeah, we've used the same software package since it started, and I don't believe that when people buy a self-check now, they still use I don't think they offer that. They only offer the new software. So it might mean that the self-check is unavailable for a period of time during the software upgrade. That was the other thing he mentioned. But I think he's been here before. He helped us upgrade the hardware of the machine a couple years ago. So he's familiar with our setup, and I think he would try to minimize the public disruption. Let me put it like that. He also, sorry, Marguerite, but Kim's kind of direct question to me last month was about whether or not the self-check would time out if it lost its network connection. And he did say the new software is more responsive for that. So I think right there, that's kind of a reason why it might be worth pursuing it.
All right.
Sorry, but you go ahead.
I was wondering, would it be more training for the staff, or was it sort of? I mean,
That is a good follow-up question. That's a good follow-up question, Marguerite. I think I was hoping to look at how the software is set up at other libraries to kind of get a better sense of that, to see if there's going to be a learning curve. I will say, I think everybody's used to the software package now. So that was one of the reasons I wasn't like, let's do this right away. But I think if I can prepare everybody for a new platform, if I can learn it first myself, I can kind of, train the trainer a little bit. So I think that's kind of the goal. This will probably happen at some point in spring of next year with sort of the current time frame. So I just wanted to give you, I'll probably periodically update you guys and then let you know when the new software is on the self-check. Then you guys could come and try it out. So.
Right. I know we all approach software updates with great respect, not to say fear, right?
Trepidation would be the word.
It's like, I think this is better. Anyway, all right, the budget discussion. If no one has any other questions about the expense report or the self-checkout. The budget
Yeah.
discussion has suddenly gotten interesting.
There's nothing else I think I have that's noteworthy on the expense report, other than the biblioteca bill is going to come in soon, and so is the news bank one. So those were two of the big annual bills. Those tend to happen more at the end of the calendar year. Those were ones I couldn't get on a fiscal year cycle. So there's I think Wowberry also comes in January. That's a relatively small one. If anybody has any sort of, I guess, specific questions, I'm happy to also meet with you one-on-one, but there's nothing that I'm concerned about at this point.
All right. Any questions? No, all right. Electronic resources usage.
Oh, do you want to talk about the FY24 budget?
Yes, do you?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm sorry.
All right, let's
I
do
keep
that.
cutting you off, Marguerite. You got to put me in check. So
No. Did everyone read the email last night concerning the salary study that's going to be done?
I
Mhm.
don't
Yes.
understand why it's done at the very last minute. Like you ask, like, I don't understand the process, I think, because the directors are expected to have their budgets in, but they can't do their budgets till this is done. And it's like,
Well, yes, but there it is. It's supposed to be done every 5 years, and now we're up to year 7 since
Yeah.
the last one was done. So it is what it is.
well, so this is just to clarify, that's the pay and classification study that the town is doing. We do an annual budget every year. So what happened was the town, I think it was kind of like FY20, FY21, that
Mhm.
really the projected plan to do another pay and classification study was supposed to go into effect. I think we know, right, that that was, there was a period of time there, right, where everything was shut down and we weren't going to probably be doing an in-depth pay and classification study. So there's new members on the personnel board who kind of, this was a pending issue for the chair, Barry Rubenstein. He wanted to look at getting this started and this process underway. So that really has been going on for the last year or so. They got a consultant. They finally looked at hiring a consultant at the beginning of the fiscal year who's been working on this project. We submitted on the library side, there were questionnaire sheets. We had staff at every level, including myself, submit questionnaire sheets. I had to provide comments on all of the subordinate staff. Marguerite, if you recall, Marguerite provided comments on mine.
Mhm.
So, we sent those into the consultant, and then the consultant had a sort of a draft of the final report. And now the board is looking to act on the final report. And the big thing is this 15-step sort of switch over
Yeah,
where
it's a
there
big
won't be,
change.
there's not going to be 2 schedules anymore, is my understanding. There's going to be like a combined schedule for everybody with the steps in place. So this happened yesterday, that the personnel board approved this in the morning. They are aware, they have communicated to both the select board and advisory that obviously this is going to require a big change in everybody's budget, potentially, especially affected employees. And what I can tell you is that library employees will be affected, is that part-time employees were found to be like below what the minimum rates in this new schedule was going to be. So that needs to be kind of corrected, is I think the terminology they're using. So that's step one. Then on top of that, there's usually an annual increase that
Right.
employees get. Many people in their draft budgets were working off of 3%, which is what they did the previous year. And if you recall, I was resistant because every year I do this, every year I go by last year's number. Next year it's different rate. So they voted yesterday to do a 4% increase. So everybody who did draft budgets now needs to go back and they need to
Redo it
redo
all.
those. And
Yeah.
that's also assuming that they don't have affected employees, which I think there's more departments than just the library that do. So long story short, I have set a meeting with Brian Valentine and Vanessa on Tuesday afternoon. And we're gonna sit down. I think we're gonna go like employee to like down the list of the employees and just verify what the rates are. And then I will start running the 4% increase numbers. So that I can do that for our next meeting. I know that like advisory probably wants the budgets yesterday, right? Janet used to be chair of advisory, and I think she remembers like this is the time
Muted.
people like the budgets is around like, just before Thanksgiving, so that they can start looking through them and making decisions. And it's just going to be delayed. It's also because we have a March town meeting, right? That's always the plan, is to do it in March. So that doesn't give us a lot of time.
So Ryan, I just had two questions. The SAP is no longer going to exist as it exists now.
There will still be a salary administration plan, but
Mhm.
I forget which section in SAP it is. There's a section that specifically has the pay schedules.
Mhm.
Okay. The pay schedules are that is going to be significantly different.
Does that
Other
have to go
parts
to
of the
town
SAP,
meeting? Does that shift does that have to be approved by town meeting?
that's a question for not me. I believe that I think the personnel board has some flexibility in this, is my understanding. I know that they're looking at enacting the pay, the 15-step
Mhm.
schedule,
Mhm.
I believe in January. That's what that meeting said. So that, to me, that would mean that they don't need town meeting approval. I thought for the SAP, you needed I don't know if they can like conditionally change it until there's a vote at the next town meeting. I mean,
I'm
if people
thinking,
didn't
yeah.
vote for this, I don't know what would happen. So I don't know. That's a question for the personnel board. to
Janet,
be
you're the
honest.
advisory specialist here. What do you think? Does it need to go to town meeting? And
Every year they have the whole program in there that you have to vote and approve and any
Yeah.
changes in it. So
Right, I
I
would think so.
understood that you did.
It could be retroactive, I suppose, if the town meeting comes after the pay raise. It's a very cumbersome system as it exists right now, for sure, so
Yeah.
streamlining would be good. So the town meeting question, but the other part of it is, Ryan, when I spoke with you last night, in terms of the damage it would do to your budget numbers, I think you mentioned it would be a shift maybe upwards of under $20,000. Am I accurate with that?
It's probably, I think year to year, when we're looking at salary increases,
Mhm.
it's usually, I mean, it's a broad range, but we're looking at like $20,000 more, $40,000 more. It's gonna be, I've kind of been running the other line items
Mhm.
just to kind of get a sense of where we are going to be financially next year. And what I can tell you is a lot of the other line items, like there's been increases, and then I think we're going to talk about databases next, and
Yeah.
the conversations are kind of connected. But a lot of the dues and the subscriptions are not going to be any substantially higher in FY24. So
Okay.
really the increase is going to be, I think, on the salary side. And what they approved is a 4% increase plus this adjustment. So we're never at a 4% increase if we just do salaries, because we have other line items that we have to
Mhm.
factor in. But I think we will be relatively close to a 4% increase because of the adjustments that they're going to do on the part-time side. So just like kind of a ballpark, I don't think it's going to be much more than $30,000, but I hate giving you amounts of money before I have all of the information in order to do that. So when I say ballpark, you have to take that with a real grain of salt. Like I need the numbers before I can start giving you accurate information. The other thing I mentioned in the email I sent out, and part of the reason I talked to
Mhm.
Marguerite last night is because we may, depending on the budget timeline, have to schedule a special meeting, and we would just be doing the budget. We would just be going through the budget and approving the line items. So if the board is amenable, we would look at doing that on a
A
particular
special
date.
meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
my other question is, I hope that we don't have to look at cutting something to prepare a budget that would be more palatable, because I think everyone will agree with me, we're kind of bare bones as it is, so, but we'll see.
I mean, other than the salary thing, I don't think there's anything substantially new.
Yeah.
In the, there's nothing substantially new in our budget. I don't think there's anything that's gonna be controversial.
Right.
I really looking at some of the increases on the electronic resources. So just to kind of give you like a rough idea, I ran an initial projection for the subscription cost for next year, and we're looking at about $20,442. That is a little bit less than FY23. And the subscriptions are the electronic databases and the print subscriptions. So some of those went up. Newsbank was probably the biggest. It went up, I think, over $1,000. So that I'd like to keep that, I think, for next year. I mean, I would just say if it keeps going up like that, we're going to have a different discussion next year, right? We can't absorb that increase every year.
No.
But we're adding also some, we have to budget for the cooking databases that we're paying for out of the LSTA grant. So those are going to be live on the website very shortly, but those have been paid for at this point. And then if we want to continue them next year, I'd like to have it in the budget so that we have that option. And that's only $225 more. The reason why the amount of money isn't bigger, right, with the Newsbank increase is because my recommendation is going to be to drop a database, which is Skillshare. Skillshare has never really taken off. It is not set up to kind of authenticate library users through their library card. It has a very small amount of users who can be on it at a time. And then I am the one who has to kind of manage getting people on the platform, again, because they're just not sort of set up that way. I think it makes sense if you're like in a corporate environment, like if we were subscribing to Skillshare simply for our employees to do some sort of online training, I think that it would make sense. That is not what we're using it for. We're using it as a public electronic resource. And I just,
Okay, so we've actually segued very beautifully into agenda item number 5, which is electronic resources usage. My one question, how much is Skillshare a year for the subscription? And so that would free up how much money roughly, do you think?
I'm gonna need one
All right.
second.
And the data on usage is fantastic.
Yeah.
Kim, did you do some of that? Was that your,
No, I don't do that report.
okay.
Can
But
I
I
just-
think you're our data collection wizard, so I think that
It's,
I think that maybe a response to your saying more data would be good, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you break it down, it looks like Skillshare is almost $50 per usage at this point. It makes
Yeah.
absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
If we want to keep something like it, Creative Bug was like 13 per use. And I think Ryan talked about kind of trying to link it to some of the programs they're doing to encourage more use, because it hasn't been super promoted.
yeah.
There's a
That's
few of them
true.
that are on the high side, but
Can I ask a question about the reports? There's
Yep.
like 2 different spreadsheets where the first thing is ancestry, but some of the stuff below are the same and some are different. And I didn't know if it was are they 2 different years?
yeah, there's dates on them. They're 20,
You can see the
July
date
20
on
to
top.
21, and then July 21 to 22. And then the third one is 22 to 23. They're the financial years, I think,
Where
Janet.
does it say
yeah,
that?
so So it's the months at the top.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have
Yeah.
titles. The Excel spreadsheet is sort of like a supplemental document to the Word report. I
Yeah.
wanted to include that because that gives you kind of a historical overview of
Right.
how utilized the resources are. And then I do think that that data is kind of important because during the COVID shutdown, the resources were like heavily utilized. Like,
Yeah.
we really spent a lot of time promoting them, getting the word out. And then people maybe who never had tried these before, you know, they tried them. They
Mhm.
we were mailing the library cards for that period of
Right.
time. I think like people got library cards just to try some of the resources. So I mean, clearly Freegal and Hoopla, which is sort of its own beast, right? But those found users. And then even though they lost some usage post-COVID, I would still describe them as kind of heavily being utilized. Again, Skillshare is kind of this bizarre a stepchild of all the databases.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, a lot of the users who are on it too have been users for like over a year or two because we just don't unsubscribe people. We don't have any new people requesting to use the platform. So even the amount of like $50 a user, it's like it's $50 a month for the same person.
Yeah.
That
Oh.
isn't,
That's, well,
that's not how we
yeah,
qualify usage of the
No.
databases
Well, and
typically.
you
Right.
know, and I've told people about it, but then there is a thing that says you have to contact Ryan, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to have to buy, you know, like that. It's a weird
No
setup.
one wants to talk to me, Amy. That's really what
They
it
don't want to
is.
bother
So-
you for their like, it's just it feels weird to people, I think. So I agree that it's kind of, I mean, it has
How
really
long-
cool stuff
how-
on it. I've used
yeah.
it, but I just think it's not, yeah, that's a
Well, I
lot.
think, how long have we had it roughly, Ryan? How many years?
We got it during like the fall of the COVID shutdown. So it's been since 2021.
Right, so we, the electronic resources constantly, and this sounds just like it ran, it didn't work great, so.
So this year's bill for it was $2,648.25. They actually charged us a few $100 more. And really, they said they added new content. I don't really know what that was, but they said they added new content. They had to charge us more over it. I would just say, based on that, I think we're going to have to pay a couple $100 more next year. And I just don't see,
Yeah.
I think it was good that we had it. I think we did have a couple users who were looking for specific Excel training classes. And that was something that we connected them with this platform. There was some training, Excel training there. So that helped them. You know, it hasn't come up a lot recently, I would
It's
say.
not cost effective as it is now.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and again, I think with some of the other, we also ProQuest for Ancestry, it has a marginal increase every year. So does EBSCO for consumer reports. So we're budgeting about a 3% increase. JSTOR from Ithaca also we're about a 3% increase. The rest of them, our databases are great. Our vendors are great because they tend to charge us the same amount of money year to year with those exceptions. That's because we're a small library and they know that we don't have a lot of financial flexibility on radical price increases. Now, Newsbank didn't get the memo, unfortunately, but the rest of the databases, right, like with Creative Bug and with Reference USA, with Infobank, they have assigned a 3-year commitment, and then they actually cap the costs. So there's not a price increase while we have that agreement.
Yeah.
That I love that. Like, that's really great for us because that's perfect for budgeting purposes for these. So
On the pricing on the Brain Fuse, the Help Now and the Job Now, is that one price for both? Because I don't see okay, that's, yeah.
it
Okay,
is. Yeah, it is.
so then it's.
And that was
more reasonable. Okay,
before I was president of CMLA, that was something that a prior president on the Central Mass Library Advocates during COVID, they
Yeah.
negotiated a discount for a bunch of libraries. And then Brain Fuse, to their credit, has honored that discount
Oh,
the
great.
entire time that we've subscribed to them.
That's
So,
great.
I'm saying this, vendors can change their prices year to year, anytime they want. But I think that's part of why we're spending time today evaluating the resources. And I want to just tell you, I hate cutting things. I don't like having something, because then eventually I'm going to have a user who calls me up or who comes into the library and they're like, I used to have this thing called Skillshare and now I don't anymore. So what's going on? And then we have to explain that we dropped it because it wasn't, it cost too much. It wasn't being utilized very well. And
Send them to a larger library. That's all I can.
sometimes we do that. Yeah.
Ryan, one thing to mention, I mean, it sounds like it's just with the cost of Skillshare and the low usage, it makes it an easy decision to cut that. I think that if we do make the decision that we're going to cut it, maybe we could just put a note on the website to say that, well, the library will have access to that until such and such date, just so people have some sense of awareness.
Yeah, so it doesn't just disappear. That's right.
Great
And they can hurry up and finish their program, whatever they're learning.
Yes,
And
exactly.
the benefit of me managing the authentication, Kim, too, is that I have the emails of all
Yeah.
the users. So I can also send out a notice to them. I should also note that because the bill actually got paid in August for Skillshare, that we will have it for part of the next fiscal year. We'll have it for July and August for a period of time. So there will be like a little bit of a phase out, if
Yeah.
you will, of it.
I think Amy's point is right on, that just the authentication and that, like, it's an obstacle that makes it more difficult to deal with.
So the Freegal, however you pronounce that, Freegal music,
Freegal,
that's the one that
Freegal.
seems to stand out there for a cost, that isn't justified by usage.
It's about $1.50 per use, I think, when I did the math. Because it's pretty well used,
3,500.
but it's used a lot, isn't it, Ryan? Is my understanding? It's gone up.
Yeah, it was, that was one years ago, Janet, before COVID, we actually cut it because we were paying a lot of money. And I think we had a total of 24 users on it during a 3-year lifespan. So I don't know what happened. People didn't know it was there. People didn't use it. Then when we shut down for COVID, we couldn't get books anymore. And that databases are considered a materials expense for the MBLC report. So it's like, let's get Freegal again. Like that was my big pitch in one of the trustee meetings when we first went on Zoom. And then everybody was like, yeah, let's do that. So we got it. And then we really promoted Freegal as a platform. We're like, hey, the library shut down, but we got this music database back. Right. And I think a lot of people discovered it for the first time. And then I have been pleasantly surprised. That is, I think, one of the big ones is that people just use it a surprising amount. Yeah.
Well, Prime is doing anybody who has Prime on Amazon, they've got
Their new one
thing
is
that's-
horrible.
Oh, is it?
I think you're going to get more now because Amazon just ruined their free music program. They've
But I
turned it
should
into
note,
Spotify.
we do have users who are like, oh, like it's like Spotify. It's not like Spotify. Freegal is specific to the Sony music catalog. There's a lot there, but it doesn't have every song. But I think once they introduced, they were in the initial stages when we dropped it before of adding a streaming platform, and they allow you to stream a certain amount of music per week.
And
like
download.
You can download the music, which I always love because it's like build your own music library, right? You can like create your own little, mixtape if you want. But the streaming during COVID, the COVID shutdown was unlimited. And then now, of course, they've wised up. They're not doing unlimited streaming anymore, but that made it very popular because you could be like at work and you could just stream Freegal in the background. You could create a playlist and do that.
And they have big names on it too. So,
Do you have, I'm flashing on two things. Remember when the books came back and we had to leave them in the spare room for 3 days before we put them back in the collection?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, sorry, that was parenthetical, but that was terrible.
But Janet's right. Janet is right, is that Freegal Friegel's one of the ones to always bring up because it
Yeah.
is the one that I think kind of stands out as costing the
Yeah.
most. I think
Well-
Newsbank is jumping to the lead next year, Janet. It's actually going
So
above.
Well,
Newsbank may
I'm
get
looking at
weeded out.
this year for Friegel, and the utilization's tiny. Or am I interpreting these numbers wrong? Active users downloading, it's like 6 for July, 5 for August, 4 for September.
Yeah, I'm looking at the overall numbers. Let me
I
get
was
to
looking,
that.
yeah, but
The ones I see are July is, unless my numbers are wrong, is 154 for July of 22,
I'm
95.
looking at, these sheets that are this year.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Oh, I see, total usage, 154.
Yeah,
What's the difference between that and the active users?
we have the definition section at the top of the Word
Oh, sorry.
document.
Yep.
So there's also like, no, it's okay. We have to do that because the databases all have different features, right? So
Yep.
there's like users who go on and they download songs. There's users who go on and stream songs,
Yep.
right? So we needed to kind of define it like that. But I would
Okay.
still, yeah, it's definitely gone down, Janet,
Yeah.
than what it was in pre-COVID years. But this is kind of my note about Skillshare too. I mean, we've been actively promoting a lot of the things since the library's been open to kind of get people inside. So a back seat has been taken for the databases. We
Right.
haven't really been actively promoting them, I would say, for almost a year. And that now that it's kind of coming up in the winter season, we are still doing programming, but we won't be doing as much, at least on the
Yeah.
adult side, is I'm going to spend some time promoting the databases. I would say let's do some Frigo promotion and then see what the end
See what
result
happens,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Are there any databases you're considering adding that aren't here?
You'll start seeing usage reports eventually on the cooking ones. Other than those ones, I think they're like there's like a recipe index, and
Mhm.
other than that, those are the only additions. There's nothing that jumps out that I'd like to add at this point.
All right. So where are we? Any final questions on the electronic resources? And I love the idea of contacting the people who are using it and saying, we're really sorry, but we have to discontinue Skillshare. Try.
I mean, it's
library.
November, and we won't not have it until August of 2024.
Exactly. Right,
So
right.
there's going to be plenty of time if people want to check it out, that they would have the opportunity to. But I don't think the cost is equaling the benefit
No.
for our users, unfortunately,
No,
at this point.
if we were a larger library, it would be a different story probably, but it isn't. So there we are. So any other comments on the electronic usage? All right, Janet, how about the library facade restoration project? She's left the chair. Hang on.
He's back.
I
Okay.
think, Marguerite, I think you called on her just because you knew she wasn't in the room.
No, listen, we all go off camera to get our coffee cups, right? There you are. Janet, yes, exactly. You need to fortify yourself for this new discussion of the facade restoration. Where are we on that?
We have the thing the lawyers prepared for us, and Ryan and I went through it line by line
I
yesterday.
see the highlighter, yes.
For the most part, we have just some clerical errors. I mean, like they have a description of the building as a single-story hip roof building, so she must have cut and pasted from something else.
Yeah.
Most of the things we found were just like that. Like a few places it mentions a perpetual restriction, and a few places it mentions a 30-year one. So I'm going to drop a thing that I'll send to Ryan for checking. But I think, for the most part, it's like, it's 95% there.
Fantastic.
And I think the other steps that we need to do there's some pieces we need to have John Parent review because it just has to do with technical support of the building. We need to give feedback on our suggested changes to Liz, and we might do, I want one more paragraph in there that specifies that nothing in this implies anything to do with other than the facade, the historical facade, because there's little places in there that talk about changing paints or we don't want,
Exterior. It's
yeah, this is
exterior.
just exterior and just the historical facade. And I think maybe spelling that out in a separate paragraph would make me feel a little more comfortable that.
I agree with you. Any other?
Um,
And this leaves room for putting an addition on, should an addition be in our future?
Right. Like one of the things here says, no additions may be attached to the building. Well, we already have an addition that's attached to the historical facade. So we got to change that paragraph. But
Yeah.
really it's pretty minor. So Ryan is working on getting the architectural drawings and all that kind of stuff that we need to attach. So that when we get a package together, and we've reviewed all these details and gotten them straightened out, then it'll be time to send it around and get it reviewed both by Preservation Worcester, by the selectmen, by whatever, and by you guys. So we're getting there.
What great news this is.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you both. Any questions? This is a triumph, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. I know you did a lot of hard work, Ryan.
I know, it's
Ryan.
it's
Ryan
Yeah.
started this a couple of years before.
Janet's
me.
done a lot of, no, but Janet really has done a lot of work. And, it took us over an hour to go through, it was 10 pages, that document. So it's,
Right.
it's a
We
it's
had
a
each read
beast.
it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, that's spectacular.
Okay.
I'm sure I can speak for everyone. We're completely thrilled that this is under control at this
Mhm.
point. So
I think that it's moving forward is
Right,
what
the
we
ball
should
is
say.
moving down the.
Yeah, because I don't want there to be a misconception that this is done. I think there's a
No.
lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of people who are going to go through this. We don't even have Lynn Spencer from SSV has volunteered to assist us with adding the drawings, the
Yeah.
pictures that need to go into it. So, that is very nice of her. And, we publicly thank her for her assistance, but just
Absolutely.
none of that has been integrated. So we don't really even have a final draft yet. And I
Right.
think there are, going through it with Janet, there were definitely some things that I think I personally would like clarified. I know Janet felt the same way. So I think that is kind of, that's going to be our next step.
Well, we
Good, so-
also need to have Preservation Worcester come for a visit. We haven't done that either. So that's one of the steps.
Right.
So
So we'll put it on the agenda for our next meeting or our next regular meeting.
just boilerplate. at this
Yeah.
point.
I just moved that line from one agenda to the next, but anyway, that's really good. So thank you both hugely. All right, now we can move on to the policy description of the circulating wireless hotspots. Do we have feedback on this?
I have a thing that's a typo. I
All right,
think.
Ryan's gone for his coffee
No.
now.
Okay.
I now
Well,
can't get,
heavily
can't get,
caffeinated here, okay.
I need to have one computer for the Zoom and then I need like one computer for the agenda. I can't get through a trustees meeting without two computers.
Oh,
now.
you are
I feel-
good, you are
I feel very
good.
spoiled, so.
All right, so the circulating hotspot policy, questions, comments?
I didn't have a problem with anything except there's a typo. Kind of.
Okay.
Oh,
In 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet. It says if overdue, the fine is $5 per day with the second line says overdue or damaged hotspots will be deactivated and the full replacement cost.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you're right, you're right.
So I don't know what it should say.
And the full replacement cost.
Will be
Of
charged.
120.
Okay.
Ryan, I just have one question on that same section. So could someone essentially be charged the full fine of $100 and then also be charged the full replacement cost?
Great question, Kim. The answer to that is no. Once an item goes into build status, the overdue fees then convert into the full billed status. So we wouldn't charge people an overdue fee on top of the replacement cost. It would simply, like, once they get to $10, like, once that $5 fee gets to 100 will be what they get charged. And then if they return it, that would actually reduce their overall fine. Because we would, we want it back. We wouldn't
Yep.
charge them the full $100, but we wouldn't be charging them both. If people don't pay a overdue fee and a replacement cost. For
Okay.
us.
So if they
So
never
this-
return it, they pay the 120 for a replacement cost.
So that's like a book too, right? If the book disappears, then you don't do the fine, you just do the replacement cost.
Well, pretty soon, that's almost a good segue,
Moving on
Marguerite,
to our
but
next
we'll
agenda
talk
item.
about that.
Okay.
The part of it's good to bring up the fines because they're when we go into the discussion about fine free, the hotspots are going to be exempt from that. There's
Exempted, right.
a couple
So,
things.
with the hotspots, what is the track record with people losing them or not bringing them back on time? Does it happen a lot?
It has already happened, I can tell you.
Mm.
We as a courtesy, we have waived a couple fines. We're not talking about more than a couple days. So it's like when I say a couple, we're looking at like 1, 2. I think the maximum has been 3 days late. So we have warned people that we're moving to a policy and that if you return it late, there will be a fine. So people are kind of on notice about that. I don't anticipate problems. I think people understand why we're moving to that, because if they're, again, these have been very popular items. So if they're all being utilized and then people want to use them and they're waiting and then they have to wait past the projected due date, that's not fair.
No,
So-
no, not at all.
My
not at all.
question, I had asked this before and I think you said bring it up, but is the 3 weeks, is that what everybody else is? That seems like a long time. Like it would be like if you got it and then you're just not using it, but you don't feel, there's no urgency to bring it back. I just don't know what the standard usage of it is. And I think it'd be too confusing to have ones on I apologize. I'm in my basement because our cleaners are here and the dog doesn't like it. So she's letting them know. But like to have some that are like a short time takeouts and long time, but I was just, 3 weeks seems like a long time if people desperately, there are people who will need them more than others.
But how long is the waiting list? Roughly.
There's no waiting,
There's no waiting
right
list
now.
and that you can't
No waiting
reserve
list
them.
right now. Yeah. So Marlboro, we've talked a lot with other libraries. Marlboro, who's our neighbor, right, is allowing like reservations ahead of time. So you can like reserve the hotspot in advance. So, there's been a litany of problems with that, which I
Vacation week or people
Yeah.
are,
Yeah. So
Calling them and then not getting in touch with them and trying
Yeah.
to tell them that
Yeah.
the thing is available and when are you coming
That's
in.
and there
Right,
there
it's a
will be a
full-time
new
job, yeah.
there's going to be a new director in Marlboro, I think, because Margaret Cardello is going to be retiring, which is very sad if you know Margaret. But I do think the staff are going to bring this up to the new director. I don't think they want the hotspots reservable. So we have asked our users is like, how do you feel about the 3 weeks? I mean, I don't think anybody who's been checking them out is a super big fan of having a less loan period, right? But I will say frequently we do get some of the hotspots returned early. Like people are doing it a couple days early. So they're not really, we do have definitely our users who go the full 3 weeks, who are returning it the day it's due. We've seen that, but it's not everybody. And I think 3 weeks I'm also thinking, because I do know in the summer, these are going to be popular for people who are maybe traveling from one area to another, or they're going to a family member who maybe doesn't have internet, right? And so I think having the 3 week flexibility I think if they start getting really, really popular and we're finding that we do have to maintain a big wait list again, that is I think maybe it's worth reevaluating the conversation and looking at like if we make a couple of the hotspots like express and
Yeah.
we do like a 1 week loan period,
Well, that's a good idea. So I guess my question when I used waiting list, it was the wrong thing to say, but how often does someone come in and want one and there isn't one available?
that had so far since we got the new ones through Mobile Beacon. I think, did it happen to
See
you,
me
Amy?
smiling.
Well, yeah, remember that yes, we used it when we went to Ohio and there wasn't one. And then one came in like, basically it's a library closed the night before we left. So it worked out. I got one, but yeah, we were lucky.
Another
I
case
think-
for more hotspots,
I'm
yes.
trying to think if that was, when was that though? Was that when we still had the MBLC ones?
August. Yeah, you were just getting, I think what happened, you got the shipment of the new ones right around, yeah, but otherwise, but if it was just me, that's not a lot of people, so that's good.
Yes, so there were, because we had 5 and now we have, I think 11, 12. There was one that
Yeah.
was damaged that we had to replace. So the charging cord, not the actual device, but they made me replace the whole thing. So 12 is the number of hotspots that we have circulating. That seems to be the sweet spot. Like we're
great.
not getting a wait list anymore. There was a period, I think, where I got a little nervous, I think in late September, where like all of them were out at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like we don't have enough,
Right,
right?
it's a bad cycle. You don't want them all like, yeah.
Yeah,
You'll
but I
see
think,
probably Christmas may give you a good view
Vacation
of what
again.
summer will be like, and possibly you haven't had a rush for this this Thanksgiving week holiday.
nope, not yet.
Well, I can tell you, I think they're a great thing to have. A 15-hour car ride with a teenager. It was fabulous to have on board. And I mean, our cellular probably would have worked, but it was nice. And it worked all the way from Massachusetts to basically the Kentucky, Indiana border. So
Wow.
without a blip. So if that gives some testimony about
So
them.
Ryan, tell them about the library use of them.
Yes, so we
Yeah,
brought
I
a
think that's
hotspot with
important.
us to Algonquin. We did find out that there was a Wi-Fi blocker because they turned that on for the kids.
Yep.
So it turns out it works on the mobile hotspot as well. But we have frequently been like anytime we go off site, if there's a hotspot available, we actually take one with us so that we can get on our computer and like issue library cards. So that that has been helpful, I have to say. Like I think we were using, I'm trying to think if we used one during Heritage Day. I think we did outside at one
Outside,
point.
yeah.
So it's this, I will say the added flexibility. And then one of the things is they're actually pretty popular with the staff, is that like if the staff know that they're going to need to go to a place and use the Wi-Fi, that's something that they have as an option. So I didn't even think about it being a staff component. One thing they used during the camps was Tim Davis checked one out because
yeah.
they were outside a lot and the Wi-Fi signal for the school didn't extend. So they were able to provide Wi-Fi to people during that too. I mean, I think this is good because we were one of the libraries during COVID that didn't have the parking lot Wi-Fi, right? So this gives added flexibility to exterior Wi-Fi issues. And honestly, Janet, I'm thinking more about the applications. Like what can we do in the spring? What can we do in the summer? Because now we'll have the ability to access the catalog and the internet in a way we didn't have before.
Would it make sense to reserve one for your guys' use or get a spare so that it's just
The library hotspot.
library?
Yes, so we haven't cataloged the replacement hotspot that we have yet, and I have kind of been using that. I was planning on cataloging it anyway, but we're thinking of converting that to like a library use only one. And then that is sort of like the reserved staff hotspot. Honestly, since we haven't had a run on them, there's always one available. But I will say I floated the policy draft to all of the staff members, and a lot of the staff who are checking this out, they're really glad that there are rules and that there's now
sure.
a policy that we can hand to patrons.
All right,
So
do you need us to vote on this now?
it's a policy, so the answer to that is yes.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the policy as amended with the deletion of the extra, the full?
I motion.
Amy, do I have a second?
Okay, second.
All right, trustee Landry, aye, trustee Asdani,
I,
trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
trustee Reagan,
Aye.
trustee Maney.
Aye.
All right, so it passes.
yeah, Ryan, I was just gonna say with you keeping, if you keep one back, it's also like, since rec has done so much for us, then it could be available for Tim as well. So, you
Yeah.
know, I think it's defendable is all I'm saying.
This did make our recreation director get a library card because I made him get one. So I will say, I wasn't above pulling that card and making him get one. Yeah.
Good job.
This is outreach that is very important. All right, the fine-free library discussion, and then after that, the ad hoc community center exploratory committee. I'd like to be able to get both of these dealt with today. I know it's 12:13, but let's see what we can do. The fine-free library, Ryan.
So this is very simple. During COVID, we suspended overdue fines for people. We've been waiving them upon return. We've been keeping our ILS, so Evergreen. We use that as our integrated library system for check-in, check-out. We've been putting it in amnesty mode, which means when we do book drop, when we have check-ins, we just get rid of any fines. We've also been getting reports from CW Mars periodically of people who did get overdue fees, and we've been forgiving those. This was a temporary decision we made years ago. I said that we would reevaluate it at a time when CW Mars decided as a consortium and as a parent organization to go fine free themselves. That occurred last month. They are now officially fine free. They are allowing libraries to opt out of being fine free and to continuing to charge overdue fees. They know that some of the Western Mass libraries in particular are reliant on that money. Some of them use the fine money that they collect immediately to go back into getting books and materials for their users. I've talked with the staff about this, with the notable exceptions of the hotspots, which we just discussed and passed a policy for. I say we, you passed a policy for, and the telescope, which is an item that costs almost $400 to replace, and museum passes, which the physical museum passes we have, if we do not get them returned on time, that prevents the next person who's reserved a pass from going. So we think that a lot of the museum passes are still being fined, I can tell you, at the fine-free libraries. So those are the three items that we've kind of moved out. The staff initially wanted to consider video games, which we have a small collection of, to also be a fined item from fine free, but I've talked with CW Mars. Out of 130 libraries in the consortium that are fine free now, so it's most of them, is one of them is charging for video games. So I thought, to be consistent with our brothers and sisters and other CW Mars libraries, we shouldn't charge fines. They're not finding that it
We never see the fine money anyway, because it goes into the general fund.
We do get our money every year from the general fund. So I feel like in the broader sense of the term, but you are right, Marguerite, in that the fine money does not directly go into the purchase of materials. We will still also collect on books that are never returned. So not having fines doesn't mean that we don't charge replacement costs. So there will be some information about, if you guys, this is a vote, because this is a big decision on that affects the library, in perpetuity after this, unless you decide to, make a decision later on to become a fine library. But I can tell you, libraries are nationwide are going fine free. They're just not charging overdue fees anymore. It has promoted usage. It has made library users a lot happier. I know, as somebody who's used libraries since I was a little kid, I have paid library fines. I'm a fan of not paying them. So
Very
I
time
think it's
consuming.
awkward
to
for the
have
staff too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is,
Very awkward for the
exactly.
staff. It's not a lot of money and it's annoying and
Yeah.
Any
cash
sense.
to save.
And then you've got money in the drawer. So my question is, there's the exceptions of the hotspots, the telescope, the museum passes. Um,
Do
does
we
that
still
need to
do
be
ukuleles?
clarified, written down somewhere? Just,
Yeah,
I mean, not
we're
saying
gonna-
do a policy, but I feel before we vote on going fine free, which I'm in favor of doing, I think those exceptions need to be clarified to me, like the hotspot is finable, but the telescope is finable, but a book is not finable, and a computer
Except for
game is not
replacement
finable.
costs, right?
Yeah, like a majority of the more than books items are also gonna be fine free too. So
Yeah.
Janet brought up the ukuleles. The ukuleles we got through a grant. We've decided we're not gonna charge overdue fees on those. We are not gonna charge overdue fees on puzzles or board games. Those are donation-based items.
So how do
so
you
that-
decide when it's overdue to the point that it's never coming back?
That's based on the loan period,
Okay.
Amy, of how much the item goes out. So like the ukuleles, for instance, let's stick with those. It's a 3-week loan period, right? Similar to the hotspots. They won't renew after, I think it's 60 days is the cutoff. I have to double check that, but after 60 days, if the item passed the due date, if it's never returned, they never get in touch with us. Eventually that goes into a billed status. And then we do, Kathy Kalenda is our library associate who has taken the lead on this, but Kathy Kalenda every week or two, sometimes it's 2 weeks, which is good. It means we didn't have a lot of them. She has to put together bills that we then mail to residents who have not returned their items for an extended period of time. With a book, you have 3 weeks and then that renews automatically twice.
Right.
So there's a total of 9 weeks. So they get 9 weeks plus 60 days before they get an overdue notice. So for a book, it's a pretty long time. There will still be a condensed time frame for something like the ukulele or a puzzle, right? That is something we're not.
Ryan, would it be a hassle and a huge waste of time to just put down on a piece of paper roughly what's exempted from fine?
Yeah,
from
we're
fine fee?
gonna
I think
do
that needs
public
to be
community.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do a public communication campaign
Mhm.
after this that's like spells this out, that
Okay,
talks
that
about.
sounds great. So
It,
do we?
it won't go into, we're gonna send you a bill after 60 days. We're not
Yeah.
gonna publicize that, I'll say, but we are gonna
We're
say,
humiliating. We're going to
Yeah.
put your name up on the website that you've
Yeah.
still
Right.
got your ukulele.
because
We're shaming them, right?
I talked with Peter at the NELA conference, and I went
Mm.
to a presentation that he and one of his trustees did about becoming fine free, because there was resistance from their board when they first did it.
Wow.
So they had to do kind of a big education campaign for the entire board on
Mm.
like, this is what the trend is, this is what people are doing, and this is like the benefit, this is, there hasn't been a lot of direct benefit from collecting fines, and people are upset, and then they got a lot of users back. That was really the success story, is that there were people who stopped coming in because they owed so much money. And then when they got rid of the money that they owed, those users came back and started coming
Those
and actively.
retroactive fine free.
There it is, retroactive. So I think it's a good PR campaign that we
Yeah.
can, I mean, fine free to. I love that it has something called amnesty mode.
Yeah.
That's.
Is
You
there
have-
any problem with circulation doing this? Like people just don't feel compelled to bring things back on time because there's no. Yeah, if I set it on my book on my coffee table for the next 3 years, nobody's gonna care.
Yeah,
Like,
you know,
type thing.
that's a good observation, Amy. To be honest, I thought it was kind of silly that to continue doing express books when we reopened, because we weren't charging fines,
Yeah.
right? And so, Leah and Carol really wanted to do it. They wanted multiple copies of the books, and they wanted kind of that on-demand collection, because
Yeah.
people had gotten used to it before we did it. It was pretty successful. It's like a funny behavioral thing, I think, is that we tell people when they check out an express book that they have a week on it. but those people also know that we're not going to find them for the book. But then it is amazing that the books come back in a week.
They appreciate the availability.
Well,
Even
if
if
they know
people
that
don't
people
finish
are
the book.
waiting,
They
if
know
people are
somebody's
waiting for a book,
waiting.
if it's a
Right.
popular book, you're not going to say,
Right.
oh, let me read these other 3 books first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
they,
you're gonna put it on the
it's,
top of the pile.
it's altruist. They're really interested in not making somebody wait longer. Yep, exactly. So I think this is good. Do we want to vote that we support going fine free, or do we want to wait to see a written piece of paper with stuff on it, or
I think we can vote the fine free part and he can get the nitty gritty,
done
together.
later? All right, are we all good on that? Sounds good to me. All
Okay.
right, do I have a motion to go fine free?
I
So
motion.
moved.
Yeah. Go Janet,
You
go.
can do it.
Effective when? Immediately?
Effective
Whenever.
I would say Monday, and you might want to put in the motion about the exempt items. It's only going to be those. It's hotspots,
Yeah.
telescope. You could say telescopes. We had 2 at one point. We only have
Sure.
1 now. But telescopes, museum
Museum
passes,
passes.
hotspots. Yeah.
Hotspots. Okay,
Do we
so
want to
let's-
say it's
hard copy
retroactive
museum?
for outstanding books?
It will be. It is most of the fines for users have already been waived, Janet, because we've been doing that quarterly.
Oh, that's right.
It's good. That'll continue. So it's consistent with past practice. You can put that in the motion, but I promise you that's going to happen too.
all right, so then it's going to be effective November 21st, which is next Monday.
Okay.
It's going to exempt hotspots, the telescopes, museum passes, and any other devices determined by the director and staff. Effective the 21st of November. There, did I say
Okay.
that? Everything
Yes.
has to be fine free. Is that sort of a motion? Do I have a second?
Close enough. Sure.
Second, or who's ever, Janet first. I'll
Whoever is
second.
unmuted.
It's all good, right? Okay, so trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Asdani,
Aye.
trustee Ekberg,
Aye.
trustee Reagan,
Aye.
trustee Maney.
Aye.
All right, it sounds like that passes unanimously. Thank you for your work on that, Ryan. It's like,
Yeah.
now I think it's a better vibe. I think it's a better PR thing to be fine free. So there
As
we are.
Janet said, it was I wouldn't want to be the staff saying you can't take out your book because you owe me 20 cents.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was always there without my wallet, just my.
Right.
Right,
my
and someone say,
card.
can I pay with a credit card?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can I
no.
get you next time, Right.
Yeah, no, I think Janet, you're right. It's the feeling that someone else is not getting the book because you've got it that makes
Yeah.
people return
Right.
them in the first
You
place.
can tie
Exactly.
the announcement to a big Thanksgiving, like give thanks, no longer out.
Yes, it's no longer. And I love that
Or-
Kathy
or-
Kalenda has to be the enforcer when she's the most pleasant, understanding person in the whole entire
She's
world.
the
It's like,
nicest person you can imagine who
I
would print
know,
that
it's
bill,
like,
print
give me
million
the
books.
book back.
Perfect
Right,
for
yeah.
it.
That's
I
so
was
nice.
thinking of like a holiday campaign, like, like the library is giving you the gift of fine
Oh,
freedom,
there you go.
freedom from fines, something like
Exactly.
that.
Freedom
That's
from
great.
fines, right. Amnesty forever, right. But don't abuse it. All right, so the last item on the agenda is the Ad hoc Community Center Exploratory Committee.
And
Okay.
thank you, Janet. I know this is a lot of work, so thank you so
Well,
much.
not yet, because we haven't even
Well,
met. I just got
well.
sworn in yesterday. I guess we don't really have to have a discussion about it now. What I
Right.
think, the more I look at this, the more I think about it, and the more I see what like Westboro has gone through, you realize what an enormous ordeal any changes are going to be. And I mean, it's a ton of work, a lot of work, and a lot of griping from people, staff, us, and the community. I don't think anybody likes the idea of the library moving. But even if we were going to, I'm just spouting off for a minute here.
No, please. Yeah,
Even
go
if
for it.
we were going to get approved and voted in and stuff for an addition to the library, we would still have to move for at least a year.
Or
So-
longer,
right.
or longer.
So there's a lot of stuff coming up, and it's easy to say, sure, we need more space, but I think we should really think long and hard about it. And I think we should document the reasons why we feel it's important. And honest to God, if we look at the list and say, no, it's not worth that disruption to get this, then we are there. But I think that would be useful for us to do, is just document. I mean, the fact that we throw out a ton of materials.
I know the weeding is really painful.
Yeah, but I mean, I would like
Yeah.
to document those things just so that we have the backbone and the strength to go through what's going to be a long, hard process. And I would feel better going into this committee knowing that everybody has gone through that thought process.
Yeah.
You know, that all the trustees have and that are for it. Because if we come out saying, you know, yep, we're moving to Woodward or the townhouse or, you know, whatever ends up happening, I don't think that would happen. It's too small. But anyway, any of these options, that we don't sit there and say, ugh, I hate it so much, let's not do it, you know? Because I mean, if we're going to come up with the idea, if we hate the idea of moving so much, let's not do it. Please, can we come to that decision earlier rather than later?
Well, the other thing to consider in this is all part of our expansion / renovation project, this discussion right here on that. Do we want storage space? Speaking of weeding, would we be interested in taking a couple of rooms over there for storage space so that we don't have to weed so much of our books? I mean, that's what I think, but that's what, I mean, it's very difficult to say that we can have a librarian over there because we need to hire people.
Yeah.
But as far as like the historical collection, could we put it somewhere else and then not have to weed, which causes me physical pain to think of all those books that we have to get rid of because we don't have room with the new ones coming in.
Well, Marguerite, I think with the weeding, every library has to do weeding. It's just, you know, a part of the process. I guess my question is, are we weeding books that aren't being used, which is what we should be doing just for the health of the collection, or do we feel like we are more actively weeding things that are still being used? So I guess there's a spectrum there for me that I'd like to understand, but I just don't want us to say that, you know, weeding is something we don't want to do, so we want more space, just because I don't think that's reasonable to say for a library, because every library
greenhouse, right?
They do weed, and I think part of it is I think that our standard core collection of literature from the 19th century is practically non-existent, and that's just, I think that's just something I'd really like to fix. And our literature from foreign countries, we have not got a lot of that. It's almost
other
zip.
languages.
I think honestly, one of the best examples of this, if I can interject, is just that we have a teen room. The teen room is really not big enough for the purposes of being a teen room. There's a limited number of kids who can be in that space at a time. It can fit fiction, and which also has to spill out half into the hallway. You know, Mariana has started looking and talking with libraries who do sort of like gaming programs. And we took a look at Shrewsbury's setup. You know, they have like a little almost lounge if you go into their teen room, where they have like a couch set up and they have like a big TV. I mean, we have like a little tiny one, right? So, you know, it's not nothing. I mean, I think we've done really great with the space that we have. I think having a tiny teen room is better than having no teen room at all. That's kind of what I say, but I would love it if like the teen audiobooks, the teen nonfiction, if the graphic novels, right, which all of those have to be in separate sections, if those could be part of that space too, like that's the biggest, that's I think one of the biggest things to take away. And also, I mean, I'm going to say this for Kim Ivers, but I think really she is at capacity for the amount of books that she has. I think there are times each year that Kim has to make hard decisions about removing books from the collection. And she does look at usage. That's a big part, Kim. But I think she takes out books that she would prefer not to because she doesn't have a choice. She just doesn't have the space available.
Okay.
Well, could I suggest that we document this? That maybe Ryan, you and I could sit down and put things in, and anybody else can either send us ideas or wait to get a draft of this and you guys can look at it and say, yeah, these are the core things that we can't do now. Because I think you know, again, when we get faced with having to move, whether it's temporarily so we can do an addition or semi-permanently, we'll want to have something that we review and say, yep, it's the right decision because of this, you know.
And we're
Kim,
also going to be actively soliciting feedback for the strategic plan. So I
Right.
think that will also help us get a better sense of like what people are, you know, we get feedback every year. Some
Yeah.
of it is very interesting. It's
Yeah.
my word,
You
right?
know, we'll definitely solicit opinions from, but for all the people who say, I don't want to pay $300 more on my tax bill next year, it'd be nice to have a concrete list of here's why we're asking, you know, it'd be
this
step
is what you
one
would get.
in
Yeah.
the
And
publicity
Kim, I'm
campaign.
sorry, I didn't mean to sound strident about the weeding because I've only helped with the weeding one time, and it hit my Yankee genes hard. Uh,
Yeah.
But and I know weeding is necessary, and I know it needs to get done, and it does keep the collection fresh, especially in more recent.
Nobody who loves libraries loves taking books out of libraries.
Yeah.
That's a repeat issue. There's a lot of staff. Our staff is really good at it. They do look a lot at like what hasn't been going out, what's the condition of the book. That's something we have to look at, right? Like if the book has been well read, well loved, maybe too loved, then it's something we either need to replace or we need to take out. But you know, no, the staff struggle with that. They don't like taking books out of the collection, and I'm glad that they don't. You know, it's that we want to have a library. We want to be able to provide the books people are looking for.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a section that was all the Nobel Prize in Literature winners. I don't
Booker
even know.
Prize and yep.
I don't even know if you can, and all the National Book Award winners that just stayed there and didn't ever get weeded. Because I know there's a ton of literature coming out of Eastern Europe. We don't have space for that.
No.
We just don't, and it's really sad. So anyway, that's my wish for more shelf room. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think, Janet, I think what you're saying makes sense. It's like, let's do this conversation now before we get too far into it. But Marguerite, I guess in talking with your desire for more like world language books, I mean, do we have any kind of future strategy for expanding the collection in that direction, Ryan? Like if we have that listed out, we could say like, here are collections or areas we'd like to expand or add. And, you know, are we not doing it because of space or because of budget? Just having that all documented, I think would help.
I mean, that's a good point. I don't think we've, to be honest, Kim, I don't think I've ever thought in the terms of if we had more space, what does that mean for different subsets of the collection? It really has not been on my radar because I know that it's, you know, we don't have that physical infrastructure. What Marguerite is suggesting about having award winner books, I mean, we have a resident who comes in and every time it's the National Book Award, she doesn't just want the winner, she wants the other nominees.
All of them? Oh, God.
Yeah,
She wants
so
to be a
we have
reader for the
actually-
prize.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
uses those books as part of a book club, right? So like she's the leader of a book club, so she like reviews it and she likes to do like the winner and like she picks like her one or two nominees, but she has to read through all the books to see if she wants to do it. So there are applications. I think there are people who would use a collection like that, especially for like a book club audience, which we serve a lot of. So, you know, I think you're right. I think we should think in those terms and we should start writing down the different options that we could do if there was sort of a, you know, I always joke, I call it my library in the sky, right? The perfect library is like, what is our ideal?
Yeah.
But there's also the Nobel Prize winners in literature that are all being translated. The most recent one was a novelist from Sri Lanka. I mean, I would love to go to a section and read a novel from all of these. The US authors don't get it much at all. I'd really love to have a section where you could go and see, 5 years ago, somebody won it from, I don't know where, name it, Africa, and just have that there. I think that's a high value a part of a collection.
We
that-
also don't have, we have some books in other languages, but not a lot. And
Yeah.
that has come up before, is that, you know, that we have users who are looking for books like in Spanish. And we just, to be honest, we don't have the space, you know, that's part of, I mean, we have some books, don't get me wrong, but we really don't have an entire collection section that's devoted to that. It just, we don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah, so there's the National Book Award, there's the National Book Critics Circle Award, also really high value literature that it just should be like a standing collection.
Hmm.
Anyway, just a thought, Janet, that's such a good idea to put down what we would be doing and what we are
Right.
not able to do right now. So,
Okay. So Ryan and I can get it started, but you're muted, Amy.
I would say, do you want to do a Google Doc that you share with all of us that we can just add ideas to, Janet, for you? Like
If
what
I
we're missing?
knew how.
I'll
can-
do it.
it's
I'll do
good.
it. No problem.
Well-
I am allergic to Google Docs, but go ahead.
Why don't I, it's good if I start it and then
Okay,
kind of
Whoever, yeah.
amalgamate it, just so that we don't go into any
The
OML,
open
right?
law,
But
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
if it's
meeting
just,
law
if it's a
things.
brainstorming document though, where we're just adding ideas that are going to be discussed later, that should be fine.
Okay.
And
So
Mark,
it should be what we don't like that we have to do now, like weeding. And then ideally what things we could do or add to the collection, you know, either have a room or do whatever. Yeah. And pie in the
It's-
sky, I think, is a great way to start.
It's one of the strategic planning exercises, Janet.
Okay.
It's the start, stop, continue. What do we stop doing that we're doing now? What do we start doing that we're not doing now? And then what is great that we want to continue? But
Right.
Kim, I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, I only have about 10 minutes since I have a parent teacher conference coming up.
Okay, well, this is perfect because I
Okay.
think we're ready to adjourn.
Yeah,
Anybody
the-
have any?
The one thing I wanted to say, and I'm glad Kim is still here, is this, I got the projected dues cost from CW Mars this week on Tuesday. That is $23,508. Just for the record, that's going to be integrated into the budget. The one other thing I didn't say is the projected dues for next year is $28,393. That includes that CW Mars assessment. So that is actually $100 less. Some of the museum passes that were in dues for FY23, we're just going to move that into the overall materials budget. We're also doing that, just for the record, with the hotspots, because MBLC considers them a circulating material because you check them out and users use them like they would a book or any other item. So that cost is going to be, we paid a bill for $1,375. That's how much it costs for the hotspots this year. That cost will also go into materials, so educational supplies. So that'll all be in the budget draft once it's done.
Those
Okay.
hotspots don't seem that expensive with this vendor.
They are
Consider-
not. They are not. It's
Great.
Great.
good. We getting a lot of benefit for a little cost. It's the flip side of some of that electronic stuff we were talking about before.
Excellent.
Right.
Okay, so Kim has a hard stop. Do I have any other comments or do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
All right, do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Trustee Landry, aye. Trustee Asdani,
Hi.
Trustee Ekberg,
Hi.
Trustee Reagan,
Bye.
Trustee Lemaney.
Aye.
All right, so we are adjourned for today. Thank you, everyone.
Oh,
Kim, have a
when's the
great
next
parent
meeting?
teacher Conference.
Oh yeah,
and-
I'll look that up. I told so many of you this was going to be a quick meeting and this was actually longer than normal, so I'm sorry, but I really was enjoying talking to all of you. That's always the problem.
Is the
So
next meeting the 16th or?
yeah,
Uh,
it
yes.
should be. Yeah, is the 16th okay?
Yep, I think that's our third Friday.
It's the week before the Christmas weekend.
Right.
We may need to have a special budget meeting, but we don't know that yet, so you can let us know, Ryan.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Otherwise, we can plan on it being on the 16th.
All right,
Okay.
that's good. Listen,
Happy
thank you for all your
Thanksgiving.
hard work for the library, everyone.
You're fine, free library.
Yeah.
Fine.
Fine, free library, we love that. Amnesty for all. Okay, bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.